All right, we are live. All right,
Yay.
welcome everyone to Pens Down. This is the first session of 5 sessions that we'll be writing. We are live. Let me press mute this. And we'll be writing specifically from different prompts in that world. And the goal is to really play in the world, explore the world, and there's going to be a narrative arc. And we have lovely Marcia here, who is one of the showrunners who will be leading this session. Usually how Pen Downs go is I share a Google Doc, there's a prompt, and then we're going to be writing a flash story under an hour. And then when I call Pins Down, or Marcia will be calling Pins Down, I think you'll be writing too. So I can call Pins Down this time and everyone stops writing. Yeah, we have 3 writers from the Syllble community now, and people might trickle in and more people might be joining as well in the later sessions, but I will give the floor to Marcia and I'll share my screen.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. Okay, so I'm going to start by just reading a story sample. So the story narrative sample that's in our Google Docs that we'll be working from today. And then I'll go up to the actual prompt. Heart told story every time the Earth Bench joined by starting with how she and Micah met on the day that the shelter was raided by Silicon raiders who were looking for escaped conscripts. People who either joined the Silicons freely or were rounded up when they wanted to run a new test on them. An attempt to reason with one of them who didn't want her arm to be touched, punched Hart in the stomach and positioned her gun at Hart's head. Micah, the most evaded conscript, kept his gun and was a perfect shot, but preferred the reverberation of a lead pipe to the back of the helmet. He figured he would be giving the soldier the opportunity of time to rethink her choices while in deep sleep, or the chance of being killed by the people who she tortured. A few days after the raid, Micah stole a pair of earrings that belonged to Hart's mother, leaving her crying hysterically and begging him to take something else. Later that evening, Micah shared his food with her, and she said thank you because she was so hungry. She told me that she cried even harder after that. I cried out, not with tears. I cried so that it would stop. I hoped my heart would give out, and I could just leave this earth. It was the same night the Silicon soldiers came back after that raid. After that raid, that 10 of them died earlier in the week, setting fire to tents, sleeping bags, and those who tried running away. I saw your parents' tent on fire, and I hope that the smoke took all of you before the soldiers did. Micah called for us to follow him, and I remember seeing a white haze and then a blue light around him. And we felt the pulling of it, leading us straight to the abandoned tech park that joined hundreds of companies on several acres. None of us had ever made it onto the park grounds before. Whenever we got too close, we were raided and pushed back. But on that night, running from flamethrowers and gas and bullets and robots. Oh, sorry, there's something missing there. Sorry about that. The light faded when we got to the doors, and I could see that they were all gated. We pushed until we found one that was loose enough to break. So this is pretty much the scene of which we'll be writing from. And just to give you some context of it, we'll be writing from the perspective of the people who followed the light over Micah's head and that led them into the park that night when the Silicons came into the tent city and raided them. It was after dinner. It was dark. They were winding down. You know, people were with their families. They were pretty much getting ready for bed. They didn't have time to prepare. They were caught off guard. And the people who were not killed in the raid were the people who were able to run and who got into the Silicon Park. that followed the light over Micah's head. And for a backstory on who the Silicons are people who have accepted that the earth is no longer safe to live on and have created a digitized world that requires people to have their DNA for their bodies changed into a digitized form to fit into it. In order to create this digitized world, they also need to digitize the land. It's a replica of the earth that they're living on if it were safe for them to live on. And so they're pretty much choosing and picking which parts they want. And a part of that are sometimes it's the places where the people who are homeless are on, because most people are homeless now. So either people who are captured come willingly, or they're killed, or they're experimented on. So if you are someone who's living in a tent city and you absolutely do not want this, more than likely you're going to be hunted and disposed of and killed, and all of that stuff. So there's a good reason to run fast and run hard and try to find shelter that is going to keep you safe. The creators of the Silicons are very powerful because they also have the ability to keep their human form and be digitized, while others who aren't them, once you say you are going to become digitized, you pretty much lose your body, and then the rest of your DNA is pretty much uploaded into this digitized world. And the raiders are sent to clear parts of the land from people who they don't want in the new digitized world. The night the raiders came in, it was a very peaceful night. Like I just said, everyone had a pretty much good night. They weren't hungry. They finally got to eat. There was more of like a joyous atmosphere. People were calm and they were getting ready to go to bed. They were happy. They were happy. They were happy in their community, and they wanted for nothing. And then the Silicon Raiders came and they broke that all up. So our prompt is that you get to pick who you want to write from. And I actually should have put that in there. But if you also wanted to write from being a Silicon Raider, you can as well. But do you want to be the person who runs and gets into the park, who follows the light over Micah's head? Do you want to be the person who stays and fights the raiders? Maybe you escape, maybe you don't. It's up to you. Are you the person who is running and you see a friend of yours that needs saving? Do you go over and try to save them, no matter what the outcome? Are you someone who gets to some sort of safety and you hide there? Or are you someone who has kids and you have to make that choice in order to, sorry about that. Are you someone who wants to, are you someone who has to get your children to safety, even if you can't make it with them? Or are you a raider? Are you a Silicon Raider who is there to do your job and whatever else that comes from? Okay. Are there any questions?
No? What's the temperature? Like what's the temperature of the night?
At night. So I would say that it's kind of chilly. It's not too bad, but it's nighttime. You know what? It's nighttime in LA. You tell me. I hear it's cold at night. So then it's cold. Then it's cold. Okay. It's a cold night in LA. Also, this is keep in mind that this is also a disaster zone. Everywhere on earth is pretty much as a disaster zone. There are not many places where you can be too comfortable. So while it's a good night where there's still fires raging. It's a good night where some parts of the earth has huge craters in it, and there have been like earthquakes, and you know, all the natural disasters that are happening have happened, and it's the earth isn't particularly safe to be on, but you're still on it. So
Okay.
just keep that in mind.
All right. It was very helpful.
I actually do have a question.
Yeah.
You say park. I think football stadium for some reason. Are you talking about like an actual park, like Greenland, or building?
So Silicon Valley parks, where it's just it is a bunch of the buildings. So these buildings have been abandoned.
Okay.
Right?
That was
Right.
another
So
thing that I had.
Yeah.
Like an office park.
Right. Right.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm frozen up here. Can you guys still see me, or is my picture just kind of like?
It's frozen, but we hear you.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. So any other questions?
That sounds good.
Okay. Cool.
Actually,
Well,
I do have one quick question. Just to sort of clarify on the question that Fabrice asked. When he asked about the climate kind of thing, you're saying that because this is sort of like almost post-apocalyptic kind of thing, that weather should not, like, we should keep that in mind when creating the weather kind of deal.
You should keep it in mind when creating the weather. Yes, it's still a cold LA night, but you should keep in mind that at any point in time you may have an earthquake. At any point in time you're still having constant fires. So if it is that ash is falling on you, or like, you're sleeping, you guys are wherever your tent cities are, there might be some ash around from that.
Okay.
So there are a lot of negative weather elements around. But yes, the night is still
cold. It's so cold. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, to clarify, because I'm still in allergy med fog. So okay.
Oh man. I know that feeling.
All right.
Okay.
Super. I guess we'll begin, and we'll do the pins down at, I'm looking at my time, so it would be noon, like noon 10, 12:10. We'll do a stop, and then we'll have 6 minutes after to whoever wants to read.
Okay.
And then if someone joins in, I'm happy to fill them in. If someone joins in, I'll be monitoring the thing.
Okay. All right. I can help out as well.
Okay, cool.
Okay, cool. I'll see you guys in an hour. Sorry, it's an hour, right?
Or at 9:10. So it's 8:24 now. So at 9:10.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. I'll see you guys at, well, for some of us, I'd be 12:10, right? Yep. Okay. All right.
Welcome, Tim. I'm just going to give you a quick, or Marsha, if you want to give a quick of what we're for like a 2 minute to get Tim into the flow. And no worries.
Hey, Tim. Yeah, it's cool. Hey, Tim. Did you get a chance to read the context of the prompt or anything?
I did not. I cannot believe after joking that I would make it. I just woke up. All right, so you catch me up real quick. I got it.
It's cool. It's cool. I'll do something really quick then. So you know what? I'll read the context to you, and then I'll let you go ahead and read the story narrative.
Excellent.
Okay, yeah. So we're going to write from the perspective of people who follow the light over Micah's head that led them into the park, which is the Silicon Valley Park, you know, the park that in this year of 2087, I think I put, has been abandoned. But it's also known as like a safe place. It's just that they're not really allowed in it. But on this particular night, the Silicon Raiders came into the tent city, where a lot of people are living. Homelessness is very rampant due to really, really catastrophic weather occurrences, the raging fires, earthquakes, floods. You know, the earth is pretty much dying, sort of a situation. And they came into Silicon Raiders, came into the tent city at night. It was after dinner. People were winding down. They were comfortable. They were happy. They did not have time to prepare for a raid. They were caught completely off guard, and a lot of people were killed. But then a lot of people, about 200 people, actually made it into the Silicon Valley Park. And we're writing from the perspective of those people. They're following the light over Micah's head as they're escaping the raiders. And to give you a background on the Silicons, they are people who have accepted that the earth is no longer safe to live on and have created a digitized world that requires people to have their DNAs, their bodies, changed into a digitized form to fit into this world. In order to create the digitized world, they also need to digitize the land. The Silicons are identified by wearing these all white suits. And the creators of the Silicons are very powerful because they have the ability to keep their human form and also be digitized while others lose their bodies after the process is finished. The raiders are sent to clear parts of the land. So they're sent to clear out like wherever there are tent cities, wherever there are like other people living that don't want to be digitized, they clear them out, or, you know, they either kill them or they have to pretty much say yes to being digitized in order to still live somewhat. The night that the raiders came, it was very peaceful, as I said, and, you know, no one was hungry, and it was more of a joyous feeling amongst everyone. And people were pretty much getting ready to go to bed. So here's a prompt. You're gonna either write from the person who is going to run towards the light over Micah's head, and you're gonna get into the park and you're gonna be safe, you know, and all the things that you see along the way. Or you're gonna be someone who fights the raiders and whatever that may bring. Maybe you escape, maybe you don't, maybe, you know, whatever happens there, but you're gonna fight them. You're going to try to save as many people as you can, no matter what the outcome, or you're going to find somewhere to hide and get to safety and try to wait for everything to blow over. Or you're someone who has children and you know that you can't run, but maybe there's someone else who can take care of them. And that's the situation there. Or you're going to write from the perspective of the raider, one of the raiders who are there, and what your feelings are about being there. So that is our prompt. And I'll let you go ahead and read like the sample of the story narrative. Hey,
where's the link? Where's the link to?
Oh, you don't have the link. Okay.
I posted it on the chat.
You did? Okay. Gotcha.
Let me see if I can post one in this chat.
Yeah, just get back in there, Marcia. Let me I'll read up and then I'll jump in.
Okay.
Cool, thanks. All right.
All right.
Awesome. Yep, got it. Cool, thank you.
All right, cool.
3-minute warning, 3-minute warning. 3-minute warning. All right, pens down. Pens down. Pens down. All right. Marshall,
Okay,
you want to do the honors of facilitating this next stage?
sure. Who would like to read? Bryn?
I would, but I need to go last because I'm not quite done yet.
Hey, pens
Well,
down.
that's the whole point of pens down. We'll make it pretty and finish it up the after part. Right now, it's just about whatever we got down.
Oh,
Um,
I didn't get to the running part yet. And I think
Oh,
that's
it's
pretty
cool.
important.
No, it's cool. It's cool.
Okay.
So Bren, you want to go? All right.
Sure. All right. So this is Syllble. Yeah. The flaps of the tent whipped around in the wind as the very form of Syllble's little home swayed with it. She could hardly believe the whoops of joy and the song for the earthbound echoing through the chilled night air. The faint yellow glow of her flashlight illuminated the sleeping bags beside her. As the light dimmed, she found the crank at the side of the light, lifting it from where she had wedged it between her shoulder and head. She spun the crank and rotated her neck, massaging the kinks from the awkward position. The light brightened to reveal the crisp pages in front of her, the infinite world of the silicons. She wedged the light back in its place. This was the book she dared sneak into her tent. Her people, earthbound, insisted upon living naturally. Still, they had banned these books many years before. The Silicon Raiders would come tonight. She had made sure she would be in the right place. She picked up the stale muffin beside her, crumbs falling down on her book as she munched on it. With a flick of her wrist, she swept the crumbs away. This book promised that the Silicons could free her from the fractured world around her. 3 sharp clicks came from the direction opposite her people. It was subtle, indistinguishable, if she hadn't been listening for it. Even then, she wasn't certain whether she had imagined it. This was the warning before every Silicon Raider attack, one she had discovered through a series of books just like the one in front of her. She shed her sleeping bag, carrying the book in one hand and the flashlight in the other. With a silent goodbye to her mother and father's tent, she unzipped the mosquito net and exited. Her bare feet slapped the pavement as she ran away from the light celebration behind her. The rubble and glass bruised and sliced her feet, but she could ignore those temporary feelings. This was the blast zone, or the digitalization zone, where she would almost certainly be killed, or worse, left in some limbo state between the two. The street was dark, but as the light behind her faded, her hope grew like the cone of light from the flashlight in her hand. She tucked her book into her armpit and lifted her other hand to the crank. A flash of light bounced off a white barrier at the end of one street. She turned and ran towards it. The white suits of the Silicon Raiders grew as they stood on the other side with their guns leveled on her. Slow yourself, a guard said. He had a blue stripe going down from his white helmet and black visor all the way to his navel. No words left her mouth as she opened it to speak. Speak, Syllble, the same guard said. I want to be a part of the infinite world of the Silicons, she said. Very well, he said. A guard lifted a different weapon, this one with a square glass shield on the barrel with what looked like a camera lens inside. The weapon fired. There was a flash of light, and Syllble was gone. Nothing left of her besides the book and her flashlight, which cracked in two as it tumbled down onto the pavement.
Wow. Cool.
I love that.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Is she a traitor? She's a traitor.
Kind of, but she's not. She hasn't hurt anybody, I guess. We'll take that with whatever you will.
This is
her decision. Yeah, I love that. I didn't see that coming. That's great.
Yeah, this is so interesting. I took like a different imagining of what the Silicon Raiders would look like, and also that digitized process, which is so interesting. I really like that. I'm happy to go next if you're.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Brent. That was amazing. Okay. Okay. Ashes from the dark red sky fell on Regis's palm. He looked up with his decrepit eyes at the large explosions that were set up to defend against the raiders who began descending on the outer edges of the barricades of downtown LA. The bright reddish light and the smell of burnt plastic moved into his tent. They're coming. They've moved past our first defenses, Regis says, looking at two young orphans, one Black and one Mexican descent. Both had a large brown hat over their heads, and his daughter, a little Black girl with braids. He's scared below her eyes, moving her hands together to warm it from the really cold temperature in the tent that had moved with the entrance of the tent being pulled open. The light of the explosions had reflected on Regis' iris. Father, are we going to die? One of the boys says with a Hispanic accent. Lucas, we fought them before. We have nothing to worry about, Regis says, trying to reassure them and keep them calm as the sirens had run off. You could see bodies and shadows moving, running outside, screaming, and flashlights. They're here, Regis hears in the back. Regis had traveled from far away with his daughter. He was an African-American man born in the suburb of Mississippi, yet because of the extreme tornadoes and earthquake that ravaged the entire city, he moved out to LA after hearing of Micah and the Earthbound Sanctuary. I'm scared, Daddy, Poya said. You have nothing to be afraid of. Micah's light, his vision, his purpose for us is grand. No raider, none of these damn silicons would be able to fend us off. Regis looks outside again and sees among the tall building down the street a large figure, white, that is moving towards them from the horizon. Then the gunshots followed. Bang, bang, bang. An explosion of great magnitude. We're going to have to leave soon, kids. Regis goes into the corner of the tent, passes empty bottles, and opens a large plastic black box, and in it a large gun that he pulled and started to add cartridges into it. Lucas, take your brother and sister, follow me very closely. We have to go underground, and all the metro entrances have been blocked and fortified. There's only one open. Regis says. They went outside and the sky was completely red. There was always other forest fires. It was the norm. Ashes all over the street could be mistaken for snow. The humidity of their breath, and they began to run. Go, 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 Regis says, pulling Poya and the two orphans forward. He then hears a large screech like a mechanical animal. His skin rises in goosebumps and fear, and he looks back and only saw smoke. Then This stopped at a corner of the street, and the cold, chilly wind had moved through the buildings, passing below their feet, and they started to shiver. Regis looked in the corner of his eyes to see if the silicons were there. We're safe, Regis says, moving the three young kids while holding the gun. They ran. Then a drop was heard. It was Silicon, a large white body that looked like a monster. Their arms was extended with pincers that would grab people. Regis says, kids, remember what I said about this time and place. If something like this would ever happen, I need you to run. Look, Poya, look after Poya. The kids ran past the Silicon as his large body began turning to the side. Regis grabbed from his chest a wooden rosary. Earth, Mother Earth, spirit that watches over Micah, let not this be my final breath. I want to live. Regis says with a tear dropping from his face, then coughing with mucus rattling his chest. Immediately the tears dries. Regis quickly unlocks the weapon and begins to explode the cartridges one after the other into the Silicon. Look, you here, you filthy beast. I don't even know what you are. Regis manages to catch the Silicon's attention that begin to go after the kids. Here, yes, you. I won't be going into your fucking digitized pixel world. Not this time. You already took everything from me. My wife, Sabine. Regis says, approaching the Silicon, moving with the bullet and exploding it into his body. The light of the gun light the dark street, the light of the gun lights the dark street, abandoned cars and stores with broken windows. Then he ran out of bullets. The Silicon uttered, Earthbound 3346, you are scheduled for digitized. He reaches out towards Regis' small body. Regis stood there and looked at his gun, then dropped it on the floor and extended his hands on his both sides. So this is the end. This is the time my life will end. And maybe I'll see Sabine again. I hope the kids made it out alive. He says loud, coughing loudly. Regis had spent his entire life running away from the Silicons. Then he found Micah. He drops on his knees and remembers the first time he met Micah, and now he talked about the promised day, that the world would be renewed, that the earthbound were on this grand mission and prophecy to turn the earth around from its misery. Then suddenly he hears a large explosion that propels the Silicon out to the end of the street, and he looks back. Old man, what do you think you're doing? Are you giving up? This is not your day to die. A young woman with a black suit, her hair was tied. It was Elena. She had been out of the park for the longest and managed to survive, and she saved him. Now we got to go now. We're going to the meeting place, Micah's chambers. They can't reach us there. Micah's chambers? Regis' eyes lighten up. He's letting us go in there? I'm going to see him? We have no choice. They doubled the numbers of raiders this time around. Not sure why. Micah says something big is coming and get up now. Elena says, dragging his body on the floor and helping him up as the Silicon begins to get back up, and its piercing purple light that moved people to the digital world upon their being beamed begin to be activated. Move, 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 Elena says, and Regis began running and looks at the bodies on the floor, lifeless. He knew they had been beamed.
Boy, that's a lot, man.
Wow.
Damn.
It took a different approach. I think mine was a little bit before, right before the attack was about to happen, and yours was like an attack had been going on.
I feel like yours like happens like days after, like when the raid is like still going on, and you pretty much like. First of all, this is awesome because everyone is pretty much like filling in all the gaps that this story has.
True.
And Fabrice, I feel like this story pretty much takes it like on a completely different level. Like everything is so evolved.
Great character.
Yeah, great characters. Yeah.
Great motivation.
Yeah.
I'm extremely hesitant to read mine now because I kind of went a different way. Like
everyone went a different. Trust me, everyone.
That's the whole idea.
Way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. All
right. Well, okay. Here we go. Oh Lord, why is this should not be this difficult? All right. Okay. Preston finally settled. No, I didn't.
Okay, no worries. Okay, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you.
No. Oh, you're good. Preston finally settled in for the night. This was the first time in a long time she was able to have a good meal she didn't have to kill for herself. She was hesitant at first. She didn't want to get close to anyone in the tent city that may leave her again. Getting close to another family, to have them die or leave, was a pain she couldn't go through, not after the last of her family members were taken by the Silicons. Preston looked out of the open flap of her tent, across the small fire that heated hers and the tents around her. There was a tent of Marcia, the woman that she had reluctantly come to regard as her mother. The tent next to Marcia's belonged to Hannibal, the protector of their found family. Marcia and Hannibal kept the lost souls like Preston from becoming feral. Where's your mask, Preston? Marcia asked, as if she appeared out of nowhere. What good is wearing it going to do? I'm still going to get sick. Hannibal went through a lot to steal those masks for you. The least you could do is wear them. They may not cure your cystic fibrosis, but it will definitely keep you out of the med tent with all the ash in the air. Preston knew Marcia was right. She reached for her pack, pulling out a thick filter mask and put it over her nose and mouth. She hated to admit it, but she was feeling better already. Now you can't see my stunning smile. We'll find a way to soldier on. Get some rest. There's a hunt in the morning, and I want you to come along. This was the first tent city that Preston felt welcomed at, one where she felt safe enough to let her guard down. It was situated high enough in the hills to still have wildlife around, but close enough to the city that there was limited access to infrastructure. She and some of the other kids loved to hear tales about the time before the Silicons. Her favorites were of the ruined city that lay below them, of its nightlife and high society, of the many movies that were made in and around it. Hannibal mostly grumbled about traffic, but it seemed the perfect escape. Preston was nearly asleep when she felt a small, warm body press against hers in her sleeping bag. Go back to your tent, Sloan. My mom said I could stay in here with you, a small voice replied from the dark. Preston turned to find a round-faced toddler staring up at her. She wrapped her arms around him, holding him close to her chest as they drifted off to sleep. The peace of that moment didn't last. The wail of sirens and the flashing of floodlights startled Preston from her sleep. She held Sloan tighter to her chest as she sat up. She tried to make sense of all the chaos, but the sensory overload was making it impossible. Marcia's sudden appearance in her tent snapped her into focus. We need to go, now. Is this a drill? Preston asked groggily as she stood. The sudden sound of screams and gunfire answered that question for her. Suddenly very awake, Preston grabbed her pack and dashed from her tent. She followed the flow of everyone else as they ran for the trail in the brush. Not everyone was lucky enough to make it to the emergency exit. People on the opposite side of the tents were racing to get away only to be snatched up by Silicon raiders. She slowed to a stop, bumping into people as they fled, in awe of what she was seeing. Tall, faceless creatures in white mech suits marched in a single line through the camp. They fired energy beams that wrapped themselves around the ankles of those that ran, incapacitating them and leaving them to be collected. Preston's throat went dry. She began to have flashbacks to her earliest memories. Even then, she could feel her father, even now, she could feel her father's strong arms picking her up and running with her as her mother lay on the ground, crying out for her to come back. Preston, move! Hannibal's booming voice cut through the noise of her memory and the screaming, snapping her back to reality. She rejoined the stream of people as they followed the hidden path down the hill. It was difficult for her breath coming shallow and haggard. She tried not to get caught up on the branches that encroached on the path, only focusing on moving forward. The trail at the bottom of the hill opened to a wide road. The asphalt was cracked, years of neglect and earthquakes evident as Preston scurried across. She allowed herself to hope that Marcia and Sloan were on their way to their designated building in the abandoned office park. Like a well-oiled machine, people filed into their buildings. There was a man that Preston only knew by reputation directing the flow of the mass of bodies. It was Micah, the leader of the Earthbounds. He was tall and broad shoulders, a light haloing over his head. She followed the light to the building and she watched it. She watched as he raised his rifle in slow motion. I didn't finish. Basically, he's gonna fire on the silicons as they're coming down the hill. But yeah.
Whoa,
Yeah,
that was fantastic.
that's really dope.
I love
Like,
it.
please put that up. Like the
Yeah.
whole point is that like everyone's version of this is completely different, but it's all completely fantastic and all like every so far. And like I'm telling you, and it's I think my story is very basic compared to the stories that you guys have written about this. And yeah, I love it. I love it.
This
Okay.
is really great. Yeah, I really
Yeah.
like that.
Oh man.
All right, you gotta get
Okay.
that up there.
Tim.
Oh, okay. Where's mine? All right. There it is. Okay. Yeah, of course, I'm the villain. Of course, I had somebody had to take the role. I took it. All right.
Okay.
I was kind of working from, I was not quite clear what was happening, so I just
Yeah.
kind of went with it. So, yeah, bear with me. All right. So here we go. It's not about hate. It never was. Why couldn't these hippie freaks understand that? It's about love. I mean, the way they consume our world's resources, the way they won't submit to the all-knowing power of the digitopia. I just kind of made that up. I mean, come on. They're the ones with hate in their blood-filled hearts. They're the ones, not us, not me. I clocked out of my digital glasses to take in the chaos surrounding us. The move from enhanced view to the meat view always jarred. How could anyone only see their own meat in their own, see the world through their own meat of their own eyeballs? Clouds skirted the moon above, the face grinning down over me like a ghoul. Screams on the evening breeze as our team continued to hit them. Mach 76, what are you doing? Why are you offline? Clicked back into cyberspace, back into real space. My vision extended into what had been darkness, now lit by glowing, cowering figures hiding behind the walls. There, one of them. Damn, I could smell it from here, even through the meat of my own nasal cavity. I squeezed the trigger on my Glock 987 auto and ripped that wall and the body behind it to shreds. Sorry, Sarge, just taking in the view. Get to it. We need to rid the world of these scum. Yes, ma'am. I caught Achik 6 off my left. Then movement. A meat walker sprang from behind a boulder and grabbed her, bringing her down. The meat walker was practically invisible. I switched out again. There it was, a massive hulk of meat in some kind of robe with a meter-long blade in its, whoops. Where am I? Okay, with a meter-long blade in its hand. Through my ears, I heard Achik 6 make a sound I had never heard before. Not through my ears alone. A scream that sounded like, ooh, I'm actually reading off that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm my bad.
Sorry about that. That was me.
Okay, can you?
Oh,
there you go. Okay,
that
cool.
was me.
Okay. The meat walker hacked and hacked again, then looked at me, up at me, his mad face, huge beard splattered with Achik 6 meat blood, and grinned. Your next cyber freak, it screamed to me. My Glock torn to pieces. Below me, here. Okay, here we go. My Glock torn. Below me, Achik 6 lay motionless. Sarge, Achik 6 is down. I'm aware. Status report. A meat walker wearing some kind of, I ran a scan on the body below me. The material of the man's cloak was invisible. I flicked back into meat space and could see his form sprawled in the shadowy moonlight. Then back to cyberspace and he disappeared. He's got some kind of robe on that makes him almost invisible. Doesn't come up on my scanner. That's how we got the drop on Achik 6. A pause. Check. And everybody, we've got a new one. Cloaks of invisibility or something. Careful out there, folks. This night could get even more fun. Could get even more fun before it's over. Stared down at Achik 6 through unfiltered eyes. Even in meat space, she was beautiful. crouched down and something caught in my throat and I choked back something. Sob? Hey, what you doing? Achik Six voice in my head. I'm all right, you big dummy. Sarge will have me in a new slab of meat in no time. Relief flooded my body, my mind as her image filled my heart. Hey, you scared me. Oh, were you worried? No. She giggled. You were. I'm okay. But now get back in that fight. We need to cleanse the world of these freaks. Go, go, go. Back in cyberspace, I launched myself forward, the bionics of my fight suit ramping up, leaping, racing down, the screams of meat walkers muffled, the kick of my Glock battering against my armor. Pop, pop, pop. We would prevail. We must prevail. For the human race to prevail, we must rid the world of meat walkers before they consume everything and strip reality of even its most essential elements. So,
Jesus.
I love it.
Meat walkers. Oh my God. Yeah.
what it was,
That-
I tried to
that's-
introduce something. First off, the meat walkers, the regular people have some kind of, they developed some kind of a, like not a technology, but something like some material
So
made from hemp or who knows, whatever.
Did
And it
okay.
renders them invisible to all this.
did I tell you
digitalization.
that the next story that I was working on, that I was writing about like the Earthbound itself, about their rescue mission, they actually discover a mineral in the earth because the earth starts to regenerate minerals that makes
cool.
them, they basically like, it's another metal basically that can like make things invisible when it gets wet.
Okay.
No way.
there you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
We're on the right track.
I didn't spend like enough time thinking about the silicons and like, you know, like what they would, I just knew that they were bad and, you know, they came to destroy. And yeah, but like this dialogue here is awesome. Damn.
But-
Hell yeah.
I
Hell
was
yeah.
trying to get also that this character is
Mhm.
actually really attracted to the reality world. So I keep flicking back between
Mhm.
like the unaugmented and the augmented reality. You know, I kind of get that tension in there too. Like
Yeah.
behind that fervor of the mission is something else that might make the character more interesting later on. You know, as a bring in some moral quandary or his own reasoning. You know.
That's kind of reminiscent of Fahrenheit 451
Mhm.
or the movie Equilibrium. You know, I don't know if you guys have seen that movie, but
Actually, I'm not sure if I have.
it's one of Christian Bale's earlier movies, and basically
Okay.
he plays like a moral police officer. Like you're not
Okay.
allowed to have any emotion or anything, you know, there's no creativity or anything like that.
Right.
And he experienced like they actively, I think they actively take medication to like suppress that kind of stuff.
Right.
And he experiences a piece of art that moved him, and then he stops taking his medication
Okay.
because
Right.
he enjoyed the feeling of that the art gave him.
Right.
And like they're supposed to destroy anything that stirs emotion basically. And when he saw that piece of art, he was like, oh wait, you know, I want to hold on to this feeling. So he hides it. I think he hides it and keeps it for himself. And then he stops taking his meds. And so he has to continue to pretend like he's emotionless, but
Right.
he's not. And his partner, played by Sean Bean, sort of starts catching on to him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That's kind of the idea there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what when you were reading, I was like, this sounds a lot like Equilibrium.
Oh shit! I didn't even see it.
Well,
I didn't steal it.
No.
No. I'm not saying that you are. It's like there are no
Right.
new ideas, honestly.
Yeah. Cool.
Uh,
This
Cool.
is great. Okay, well, I'm going to be the disappointing one. My story is extremely basic. It is not as good or not as lively as anyone else's story here.
We got a serious action thriller going on here.
You got exactly like you guys brought the heat. Okay, like
All right.
all right. So I'll go ahead and read mine. And I wrote from Micah's perspective. To be honest, I didn't care what that she was crying over minerals that came from the earth and were shined up pretty for her. If she didn't care that Henry's baby was crying for 2 nights because he was starving, then I didn't give a damn about her shitty family heirloom. If it wasn't for my father's words moving me to always do the more human thing, I would have given her food to a lucky someone. But people see me as a leader, and like it or not, understand it or not, I lead. I was heading back to my tent and decided to check on Tamara and Henry and their new baby, just 2 weeks old, when I heard my name being screamed. Arnie ran towards me, coated in ash with an air horn. Micah, Raiders, we got to get out of here. I saw at least 20 of them on bikes. That only means that there are more right behind them. Arnie was never wrong about the Raiders and usually spotted them in enough time to get everyone packed up and moved out or gather enough weapons to fight them off. Not having that, the only plan was to run. The air horn sent everyone running and trying to grab what they thought they needed. I screamed as loud as I could to leave everything behind and follow me. I wasn't sure where I was running to. I thought that we would hide in the first place that we saw until the Raiders got tired and left, but we had to run. Run this way, I shouted. Some people heard me, but others didn't. I wanted to get more people, but the white wheels of the bike screeched, stopping me from thinking. One by one, they rode down the street where we all lived and started their mission. Some stayed on their bikes and rode people down. Some got off and beat whoever they could get their hands on. I couldn't get to my weapons, and we were outnumbered. I heard the rumbling of their convoy and started to run. I felt my head tighten, and I could feel my knee give, and I couldn't feel my knee, even though I heard it pop. It was like I wasn't in my body. Something else had taken over, and I had been put in the back seat with a blindfold on. We must have ran for over an hour until I saw the gates of the park. The long steel doors that protected the precious Silicon Park from us who lived on the streets were never meant to be open from the outside. But Arnie had been an engineer. This goes into Arnie pretty much having the right tools in order to like pick the locks and get everyone inside. So here's the thing about Micah. He is the leader, but he's kind of he gets kind of yellow sometimes.
Mhm.
And
Wait,
he doesn't
yellow?
always make, well,
What does that mean? I've never
Yellow.
heard that slang.
Scared.
so
Oh.
scared, kind of weak.
Mm.
It's a term from the Old West.
It is,
Yeah.
it is a term. It is a term from the OS.
Yeah.
So he doesn't, even though like he's very scared at this moment. He's just like, I want to help people and I'm going to run. And in other stories, you will see that Micah makes the right decisions, but they're not done in the right ways, or they're really hard decisions, and he doesn't always do the right things. And I kind of wanted to start that off as like a bit of an introduction there. So that was I'm the
Totally.
disappointing one right here. Like this
No,
is very,
no, that was great.
That was amazing.
it's
I really
very
like
kind of, I love that everyone was just like action, 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 action. Man, yes, I loved it.
No, I think this is good. I really like the way you I think the way you just demonstrated was a cooler, composed like narrative, and I think introducing us to this fearless leader. But you're saying that he's not perfect. I
He's
No.
a reluctant leader.
Yes,
A reluctant leader.
is pretty much just like they picked me and I gotta do it. And that's pretty much him throughout most things.
Are you saying mine was action filled? Because I don't feel like mine was action filled at all.
I don't feel mine was action filled.
Really?
Either. I was like the
Okay.
exact opposite.
I
feel
think
like
that
it's
these both
completely in
stories
here.
portrayed like being hunted down by the Raiders is like pretty like visceral. Like I could
Yeah.
feel all of that. So that's why I'm saying it's very action filled. Yeah.
I'm wondering, since our intention or goal is to release a manuscript of this world in 4 months, I wonder in terms of just process. So we'll have 2 weeks until the next pins down to expand on this story, and we'll have the Thursday write-ins as well to do it, and we'll do it on the Syllable platform. But I'm wondering, Marcia, in terms of continuity, I wonder if it would be good to have like a boilerplate of like, for you as a showrunner, which world building did you like the most? Like, did you like Bryn's vision of the beamed, where there's nobody left and like the light gets beamed and then people disappear? Or did you like my vision of like this purple light and then there's bodies on the floor and people stay? Also like Kat's vision of like the world building and Tim's vision of the world. Like, I wonder if you could make like a boilerplate. Like, I think it could be helpful, like just like a list of like 5-6 things. So as the 2 weeks go on, we can go back and like arrange and make sure that it sounds similar, because we have like different types of beams, different types of like how maybe the Silicon Raiders are like, there's different classes of people, and then there's gigantic robots or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's
okay. So
definitely...
like pick like what I like from everyone, because it's like there's a lot here that I like, because like I'm like, yes, your way makes absolute sense, and that's the way that we should go. But there's also like a part of me that's like, I like how raw this is and keep it the same. But yes, absolutely, taking from everyone's story fits perfectly. Like, you know, I like the way that that Bren's character just kind of like acquiesces, but also like how it's done by the Raiders. I like the way that, you know, Kat's her characters are very like real characters. They have real problems. They're still living in this world and going on with it. It's okay. I see what you're
just
saying.
Some basic elements.
Basic elements and like and all kinds, something that we can all look at and say, okay, we can go from there. Okay.
Just so there's not 5 versions of the same story.
Right. I think the other thing is just contradictions. We don't want to have we don't want to be okay, so the person, there's no one
my
there.
person
they get
can't
digitalized.
Have they can't like explode, and then the other person, you know, has like a floaty cloud or something. Absolutely. Okay, let's do that.
Like, you see Bryn here has the infinite world of the Silicons, and I really like that. And then Tim has like Digitopia. So it's like there are 2 different names for this digital world. So which one do you like the most? Or different vernacular for
I think
how people refer it to too.
Well, I think that what Tim did was give it a different name, to give the Earthbound a different name. Yes. So you know, if you're talking about meat, what do you call it?
Meat walkers.
Meat walkers.
Like, you're referring to Earthbound.
Right, exactly.
You know, like it's you know, like if someone is referring to something as Digitopia, then you know they're probably they're a digitized person. They're for like the digitization of humans, of human beings.
You gotta make these choices.
Marsha.
That's I think we'll just defer to you. You make the choice and we'll run with that.
Okay.
Yeah, just like, it doesn't have to be anything large. Just something small, like couple bullets, like in order for this is what.
I mean, you guys honestly did the work right here. Like, all I have to do is just like pick it out. But so pretty much everyone's world was great. I'm just gonna go through and pick out the parts that work, and everyone will.
I wonder.
You guys and tell me.
I wonder if my character seems to be coming towards the perspective of the Earthbound, whereas Bryn is going the opposite way. I wonder if we can almost like my bad guy slowly works towards being the good guy, and Bryn's Earthbound person is now going back the other way maybe has bring some intelligence, some insight into the Earthbounds, and I don't know. It kind of works. I wonder how that could work.
Yeah.
with
So
that,
like
you know what I mean?
there are often in this world, they're often traders.
Right.
Micah himself used to be someone who was going towards the Silicon like world, but then he defected and left. Like a lot of other people. So there are absolutely people who would be in the Silicon world who would then absolutely trade them and be like, no, I kind of want to go back. And people who are in the Earthbound world are like, keep having to run from fires and floods and earthquakes and manholes and like manholes, what am I saying? Sinkholes and all sorts of stuff. Like that's just like crazy. So yeah, why would I do that? I'd rather do that. And if I can take them some intel, like, they'll probably like boost me up. I'll get a better position in the new world or something like that.
But
Yeah.
but of course we'll
And
have
I-
to see where Bryn takes it.
Yeah.
I also saw the book title that I had there, The Infinite World of the Silicons, as more of a propagandized version of it. Like it's more of like a thing that's made to make it look good. And
Yeah.
I mean, I also do want to bring some more ambiguity into it, but still making that obvious. That's very much like what the Silicons would probably call it to somebody that's an Earthbound that they're trying to bring over.
I like that.
Yeah. And
So,
yeah, go ahead, Kat.
I was gonna say just an idea. Marcia, to keep in mind, there is precedence of in fiction where some of the same things, like groups that are separated by time and space, have different names for the same thing.
That's true too.
And what my main thing that I'm thinking about is in the comic/show The Walking Dead, they're like in the same universe, in the same continuity timeline of the show, they're like at least 4 different names for zombies, and none of them are zombies.
Sure.
Some of them call them walkers, some of them call them biters, grabbers, stuff like that. So that's also something that you can think about, because we've got from the perspective of an actual Silicon, his terminology for the Earthbound may be
Right.
derogatory.
Right, exactly.
But
Right.
and what Bryn was talking about, the title of the book could be a propagandized version, sort of like, rose tinted glasses, to recruit some of the Earthbound people to become, to want to voluntarily become a Silicon. So that's something else that you can keep in mind when creating this sort of outline for us.
All right. I think, yep, that's absolutely right. I know that time is also like, because we're going to be here, and then in the next 2 weeks, we'll continue on from this part, and we'll spend like that time. I think this is where we're going with it. We're going to write from the perspective of once they get into the park and start to form their community. Like the first couple of I have to figure out like where we're going to start off from, if we're going to start off from the first night where they start the ritual of being Earthbounds, or maybe like a day into like the Earthbounds, but I'll see. But I think first things first is getting the continuity together. And the fact that now there will absolutely be different ways to refer to both Earthbounds and Silicons. There's a lot more that I can go off of and work from.
Cool.
Yeah, I feel like a good model is like, and I think we talked about this, is like this first month is like Act 1, and then the second month is going to be Act 2, and then the third month is going to be Act 3, sort of like a season, like an arc, in terms of different prompts in there. So I'm really looking forward to whichever sort of, as the visionary leader here, leading us into your world, to see what what can happen. So this is really exciting. And I hope more creators are able to join too. So we'll be getting in. What were you gonna say, Kat? Sorry.
Really strong stories, really strong all the way across. The views, the perspectives are it's so fascinating to see how different this is, and it creates such a much richer experience, I think, for the reader to see, all these really different ways of viewing this whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just gonna say I just love pens down for this.
Yeah, right.
It's just a great exchange. I love it.
Totally. I will make my best to show to the Thursday write-in on next week. Okay. But I think my goal is going to be to expand on the story and just make this like a short story for the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
As time permits. But I think, once we get the continuity template in terms of the continuity for the world building, I'll start to make the edits and changes and keep the narrative flowing, because there's a lot that's going to happen. So
totally.
And I see where you mean. It's like, this is not the Earthbound yet. This is pre-Earthbound. So I kind of like jumped the step a little bit and thinking like this, they were the Earthbound and they're already in the park. So I think I'll make some, and I can make some clear edits on that too. So
yeah, you're not that far off. It's just you wrote a lot. So you pretty much like you jumped into like the next like another scene, but yeah, it was all great.
Super. All right.
So
this
Thursday?
Is great. What'd you say?
Thursday, huh?
Thursday, yeah. Thursday write-in.
All right.
So
I'm gonna make it this time. I keep saying I do, but it Thursday comes so fast, right? Every week goes by so fast. It's like,
yeah,
it's already Thursday again. So yeah. Send out a little prompt, Marcia, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Fabrice and I will work on the newsletter and send out. I should have the continuity lists to everyone probably by Wednesday.
Okay.
And we can start working on everything Thursday night. I think 7 p.m. your time on the East.
That'd be good.
Yes, 7 p.m. your
7 p.m.
time.
works.
Oh,
Yeah.
it'll be 7 p.m. my time too. Tonight is the tonight we spring forward, right?
Yeah.
I believe
yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Is it tonight?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. There you go. All right.
Well, this is great. Any final thoughts before we close out? This is good. I guess 2 hours works perfectly. So
that was cool, man. And I just say that the Silicons, we're gonna win, man. Sorry.
Oh wow. I love this. I mean, look, there's a great possibility that you might. We'll see where it goes.
All right. Cool.
All right.
I like that. I just want to say real quick, I like that. I'm not to toot my own horn or anything, but I like the fact that my story can slot into anybody else's continuity.
Right.
Because I don't really, and that's just how I write science fiction, I guess. I don't like necessarily doing anything specific. Because it sort of limits me creatively, but also I'm a little bit lazy. I don't like having to come up with stuff like that. So I'm willing. I'm saying all this to say that I'm willing to. You don't have to necessarily take anything that I've written into consideration when writing the continuity. I can go anywhere. So don't focus too hard on my story.
I think it's all of our stories, all of your stories today that have like inspired something and found the connection through everything else that I was writing and hoping for the Parallelia world, whether it was the first story about Parallelia or the second one about the Earthbound. Everything that everyone wrote was pretty much like connected with it. So it's the continuity is about like what makes it tighter, what makes it flow a little bit better, and what's going to really keep the story going. So yeah, Yeah.
All righty.
All right, I'm gonna
Excellent.
All
press.
right, party people.
I'm gonna press